starting soon. Hello, colleagues. Good morning. Welcome to this session, which is titled Indigenous Knowledge I. So in this session, we have 5 presentations, ranging from UBUNTU, witchcraft, indigenous knowledge, and food. And we are excited to hear from our presenters today. So in the interest of time, and given the fact that we have only about 80 minutes, and yet we have 5 presentations between now and 11:30, we will be using 15 minutes each presenter and not 20. So I would suggest that we have all presentations run at a go, and then afterwards we will be attending to questions. So may I please ask to know whether we have all the presenters in? I see that we have Bernard is in, but he is. So Bernard is in, and then we have Sarah, who's also Paul, and Samuel Musha. I don't see Samuel. Perhaps we'll be joining later. And then Priscilla. I don't see Priscilla.
Chair, you're so low. Chair, you're so low. We cannot hear you. People are not hearing you.
Is that so?
Try to speak up.
Okay. Can anyone else hear me speak? Hello? Okay, I see another complaint here. But, okay.
You are so low.
Let me try and speak directly to the computer. And
you are so low.
Okay, hello everyone. Is that, do you now get me louder than?
Very clear now.
Yes, at least now.
Okay, perhaps the earphones I was using were faulty, but I hope this will be clearer. Is it better now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think it's clear. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much for confirming. All right, I have just said that we have about 80 minutes and we have 5 presentations. And each presenter will have 15 minutes maximum. And I would suggest that we have all presentations run. And then later we will have to attend to questions for each presenter. So we will now immediately go to the presentation by Bernard Luelekera, titled Ubuntu, the Essence of Humanness in African Social and Religious Anthropology. So Bernard, if you could please share your screen, and then we will begin the count. Thank you. Bernard? Bernard, can you please share your screen and start your presentation now? Bernard, please.
Bernard,
Hello, Bernard.
Can you unmute? Bernard?
It seems he's not on call. He's on, but he can't respond. Okay. Oh, Sarah, you are sharing your screen, but we are not yet into your presentation. If you could please unshare.
Maybe Chair, if Bernard is having some maybe problem, I think maybe we can go to Sarah as Bernard prepares.
Okay. Sarah, are you ready to take up this first session, this first place of Bernard?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, please go ahead and then we'll check with Bernard to confirm.
All right.
Thank you very much. So Sarah is going to be speaking to us about food, and her title of the presentation reads, "Once food is annoyed, expect endangerment and extinction. An ethno-linguistic analysis on endangerment and extinction of traditional foods in central Uganda." So Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I salute all participants. We are here with my co-presenter, Professor Bas Chimba, to talk about an ethno-linguistic account of food endangerment and extinction among the Baganda who believe that food can be offended. And once food is offended, expect endangerment and extinction. Am I clear, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, but we are
Yes, you are.
not seeing your presentation.
Oh, really? I shared my screen.
You didn't share the presentation. I was only waiting that
You shared the screen, but you didn't share the presentation.
Oh, I hope I know the difference. Because
please open your slides, Sarah, and then.
yes, they are open, and I see a notification you are screen sharing.
No, you shared a file browser window.
Oh, gosh. May I ask the technical person to use the submission I made so he shares on my behalf? Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
It should be okay if he has one.
Yes, he has one. I sent it to him.
Okay.
Michael?
Okay.
Michael?
Okay, just a minute.
Okay, okay.
Please unshare.
Okay. Was I clear enough? Was my audio loud enough?
Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I am.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Sarah,
Thank you very much.
Please now go ahead and start.
Yes, I'm with my co-presenter, Professor Bas Chimba, to talk about an ethno-linguistic account of food endangerment and extinction among the Baganda, where it is believed that food can be offended. And once food is offended, endangerment and extinction is expected. In this presentation, we are going to talk about the following. Please move the slides. We are going to talk about the background, problem statement, the rationale. Michael? Michael? Please go to the next slide.
Just a moment.
Yes, that is what we are going to talk about in our presentation. Can I see the next slide? As a background, studies have shown that several nutritious foods which our great ancestors used to consume have continued to disappear from the traditional dietary. And studies in Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and Uganda attest to this. In Uganda, for example, nantoke, which is a wild fruit, is endangered. Candy is reported to be close to extinction, and namulimi, an underground wild animal, is extinct. In this study, we realized that, move to the next slide. We realized that the causes of food endangerment are explained mainly from the scientific perspective, where scholars talk about factors to do with climate change, poor breeds, introduction of alien species. And while the Baganda acknowledge these factors as being valid, they insist that the cardinal cause of food endangerment and extinction relates to the neglect of the traditional beliefs and norms related to handling food, right from preparation, handling seeds, serving food, and the practical eating manners. They believe that food can be offended, and this kind of information, which is ethno-linguistic, has not been given scholarly attention, and we are here to explain, to give an account. We believe that this knowledge is important, much as it is less documented, and the little that is available is not widely circulated, or it is disseminated mainly orally. And we argue for the need. Next slide, please. We argue for the need to preserve this knowledge so that the future generation can be able to utilize it in Africa and of course globally. And since we are talking about humanities in the new era, we think this is a linguistic contribution and it is relevant. The objectives, next slide. We want to offer an interpretive description of the Chiganda beliefs and to analyze, next slide please. And to analyze the pragmatics of the linguistic expressions which are used in reference to these beliefs. And finally, we look at the role of language in creating emotional awareness on the values of food and how this awareness converts into the urge to preserve food or to lessen its dangers. Dangers in terms of extinction and disappearance. Next slide. We define key terms in this study. Traditional beliefs are described as the prescribed folklores, the manners, those characteristics expected of a Muganda when he's interacting with the food at all stages. And we consider indigenous food as foods which are consumed by our great ancestors, the native food like yams, endagu, chetumula, and the like. Traditional foods can be foods which are adopted, and they've lived in Buganda for decades. For example, matoke. We are also aware in this presentation that the notion of food is contentious and it's open to interpretation, because what you take to be food may not be food to me. So the discussion must be taken with that kind of awareness. Methods, data, and theory. Next slide, Michael. This being an ethno-linguistic study, we adopted qualitative methods of data collection and analysis. We conducted interviews and group discussions where we audio recorded spoken data on food narratives from 135 adult Baganda across 5 counties in Buganda last year. This was Bulemezi, Budu, Bululi, Sese, and Chadondo. Male and female across generations were interviewed, and they are basically talking about how they conceptualize food, what beliefs they consider, and things like that. Because we wanted to have an opportunity to see how people interact with the food practically, we served the meals and refreshments, and we are able to see. We also made references to songs and stories which talk about food directly. So in the analysis, only beliefs which were acknowledged by at least 5 participants were taken to be valid. We followed ESCO procedures and SOPs, and the analysis is informed by the notion of, by relevant theoretic notion of ostensive communication. Ladies and gentlemen, we must mention that this extraction is part of a bigger project, and the details can be found in the bigger project, even in the book chapter itself. What are some of the findings that we came up with? One, we realized that in Uganda, food is personified. It has the personal attributes of feelings and emotions. You can hurt food, you can offend food, or you can appease food. Food can be happy when you are eating it and you are eating it with that kind of love. We also observe that language is this strong vehicle that is used in encoding this language. They use language which is loaded, as we shall see. What are some of the beliefs that we are able to identify? One, in Uganda, banana and what Muganda considers as a plantation, as a lusuku, must be a plantation that bears a male banana plant, which is expected to be mbide, and if mbide is not available, at least gonja. Mbide is a banana type where we get local. Those of you who travel, eat gonja along when you're traveling. So the Baganda believe that you must have a male banana plant. And failure to have one in your plantation will not be an ideal lusuku, but it will be olusuku olweyombekera. It will be a lusuku which is husbandless. So the idea of having a mbide, a male banana plant, and of course, other female banana plants is equivalent or is interpreted in the context of a marriage, where in a home, for example, a husband is expected to play specific gender roles, and so is the wife. So female plants, bananas are for food, and male bananas like mbide are for local brew. What is also interesting, this also depicts Ganda patriarchal societies where men can be polygamous and women, of course, they are not. So we see this banana plantation having only one male banana plant against so many different types of bananas which are female. But what is the logic behind this belief? Which logic we want to highlight? It is important to have a complete diet. A healthy Muganda is believed to drink after eating. So to have this complementarity, it's important that you have both. The second belief has to do with the belief that you cannot use leaves or fibers from mbide for cooking. It is abominable. They say chive. The word chive is loaded with emotions of something that you cannot do and go unpunished. So you cannot dare touch this one male plant, which they have in this big plantation. And if you ever did, the interpretation is a merekawa, food will be bitter. So the voices that we got from the participants, they were talking about omamita fumba. You cannot have this family head, which is ambide, engaged in the cooking activities, or neither can you cut off part of the husband because it's a family head. So the logic behind is to guard jealously this male banana plant from extinction. Similarly, mbide was not meant to be commercialized, and you could not find mbide in any market. Why? Because once you did that, the lusuku, your plantation will disappear. It goes with the market. That was the interpretation. Again, this is protection. You only have this one plant, which has to supply drink for this big home, which used to be polygamous in most cases. And if you took it out and you made it commercial, then your family would starve. So all these don'ts are there, but inside them, they are there to protect and preserve these species from endangerment. The Baganda also believe that you cannot harvest bananas with a panga. You must use Akamba Kaganda. Akamba Kaganda.
Sarah, you have 5 minutes.
Akamba Kaganda is this, thank you very much. Akamba Kaganda is this carved knife made by a blacksmith, which is supposed to be used to gently harvest the banana. If you cut with a panga, it will just fall with a lot of force. And according to the Baganda, that would be equivalent to okukango lusuku. You scare the banana plantation. But logically, the effect of a falling banana when it is cut with a panga will be severe, especially on suckers. Okay, the Baganda also believe that nawandagala, which is a small banana foliage, the one which grows last before the bunch comes up, is treated with utmost privacy. After harvesting, you get that leaf and hide it in the mulch. No one should ever see it. If they did, then you lose your plantation. Again, that is something which encouraged mulching. Next slide, please. Yes, certain foods in Uganda are harvested in silence. For example, kama. Kama is a wild yam species. What is not established though is whether there is a relationship between a kama, the Uganda word kama, and the food karma. But what is believed, once you make noise when you are harvesting karma, karma will hide. But the logic behind this is, you know, it requires a lot of energy to harvest karma and concentration. The good concentrate, remember it's in the forest where wild animals can attack you. So you have to be silent and you harvest karma in a whisper. Quietly, silently. Similarly, it is abominable to cook karma because it's food which is consumed during famine. And this practice basically encouraged the women not to be lazy, to continue practicing agriculture during rainy season. And of course, to preserve karma from being extinct because it's wild, it grows itself. Next slide, please. Other practices include okudiza. It's a practice in Uganda to give back the first fruit of your harvest. So you take a parcel to a village chief, or you take a chiteleke and drop it at the road junction. That is the first harvest. This encouraged sharing, and no Muganda would ever want to share, poor quality foods. And this encouraged. So the word kudiza has these emotions related with, sharing, love, and caring for others. And these are some of the values that define Baganda and, of course, the culture. Next slide, please. Yes, certain posture is expected which respects food, and if you don't take that posture, food will be offended. For example, after planting sweet potatoes, you have to sit properly and mutter certain words. Mwebyale, mamonde, thank you for, mwebyale, thank you for, it's like a prayer for better yields. And one has to say mamonde. When someone is planting chetumula, for example, is not expected to stand upright. You're supposed to kukakana, you sit down at ease and, make sure that chetumula is given due attention, or else you will not get good yields. And the expression that the Baganda used to explain this, they talk about akola kabina, that once you sit properly and plant this chetumula will develop a big buttocks and it will spread. It will spread. Remember, the planting of chetumula requires preparing the base where it will sit. And once you are not able to do that, it may affect your yields. It's a belief. We are aware that some of these beliefs might be hypothetical. Next slide. But we need to rethink about them and ask ourselves, is there any logic behind this kind of, do's and don'ts? Those are some of other findings which we can find in the bigger book. Some sources are prepared without salt. Some food is not supposed to be dipped while you are eating it. It's abominable for chicken to eat peels of endagu and chetumula. Certain tools are expected to be used when you are preparing food like a chibo, not katasa, or any other thing. Don'ts related to table manners. Women in messes were not expected to interact with food directly. And if you dig deep into all this, they have this inherent rich culture.
So if you could please summarize.
Okay, in summary, in conclusion, we are saying that food is personified, and the Baganda believes that this the abandonment of the traditional cultures is the cardinal cause of endangerment. This knowledge is not known, and we need to pass it on to generations in other forms which are not oral. We observed that there are variations in the knowledge experience. The younger had knew less than the older generation. We had issues with the translation. Some of the expressions were a bit difficult to translate. Chetumula koza kabina, chive okusolobeza, and we are able to come up with some suggestions which are presented in the bigger book. Next slide, please. Yes, the above limitations withstanding, we believe that this study was an eye-opener to the amount of knowledge and on the degree of emotion and culture attachment to food that exists among the Baganda. And we acknowledge the scientific contribution, but we also think that linguistics can come in to supplement this and promote food regeneration. Some of these beliefs are hypothetical or they are inherently superstitious, but this study points to the need to rethink the relevance of such knowledge and its significance to food security campaigns. I thank you very much. I acknowledge Andrew Mellon Foundation and the organizing committee.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for that exciting presentation about food. Well, I'm not too sure. Maybe we could ask you questions and then although we had said we can postpone the questions, but I feel that we can have 3 minutes of questions and then we can move on to the next presentation.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, yes, colleagues, if you please have a question or a comment regarding Sarah's presentation, please post it in the comments or else raise up your hand and then you can ask your question in your own words. Okay, Levi says, Sarah, if you could also see in the comments section,
yes,
in the chats,
yes,
says, I like the Chetumula alone.
yes,
Okay, yeah, he's simply excited about
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely it has a deeper meaning. Can I respond, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, it has a deeper meaning, definitely. And this language, like I said, that language is this powerful vehicle that the Baganda are using to enforce this kind of message and this kind of knowledge. So you see this figurative use of Chetumula Akoza Kabina, because it has to spread. And when this participant was talking about Chetumula Akoza Kabina, there were these gestures of this kind of a woman who was sitting down and spreading. And of course, Chetumula, those of you who have planted it or who know how it looks like, when they are planting it, they dig a hole and they baste it with either mulch or a hard material. It could even be an iron sheet, something like that. So that it spreads. If it does not spread it, then it will go deeper. Actually, they say when you're planting, you have to bend down, because if you don't, it will grow deeper and deeper and deeper. And it will be standing like you, the planter, and it will be hard for you to harvest it out. So one of the objectives was to show how language is powerful in enforcing this knowledge. And these are some of the things which we are able to identify. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the Q&A section, Sarah, you have some questions. For example, from Gulele Cornelius, he says, food security, how is this going to be ensured with GMOs? And Monica asks, why didn't you conduct an ethnographic study? And then Wells asks, thank you, Dr. Sarah, what is indigenous knowledge practices are associated with food storage and preservation in Uganda? Perhaps if you could answer, Sarah, quickly in a minute to summarize these questions, and then we'll move on.
Yes, starting with the Gulere, with GMO, of course, food scientists will have a big yes when it comes to GMO, and traditional farmers, some of them may have a big no when it comes to GMO. But I'm this person who believes that having this knowledge complementing having GMO and the traditional knowledge together and giving the farmer and the food consumer an opportunity to see where they prefer to go is also a good thing. And we cannot talk about GMO without thinking about the indigenous foods, because it is the indigenous foods which are modified. The second question was, why did I conduct an ethnographic
Sarah, unfortunately, your network
I did not
is
capture
not stable.
that, Mr. Chair, and I don't see it in the chat.
Sarah, your network is not very
Hello,
stable, but
Chair?
what I suggest, Sarah, I suggest that you please look into.
Chair?
Hello, Sarah, can you hear me? I think we lost her. She's Sarah. She's muted, but if you would please look into the Q&A panel and also in the chat to capture these questions, because they might inform your subsequent revisions of your paper. I hope you capture them, and please, colleagues, you can continue debating and exchanging ideas around this subject, but also reach out to Sarah in person if you can. We now need to move on to the next presentation. May I know whether Bernard is now ready to speak? Bernard Wedekira, if you are please ready.
Chair, yes, I'm okay. I hope that the network will keep the pace for me.
Okay, would you now please share your screen and start?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And please remember that you have 15 minutes, and then we will. I will give you a warning at 10. So please start.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to give the full slide. Good morning, everyone, and I'm pleased to make my presentation of the study I've been undertaking on Ubuntu. Sorry, my screen is not moving. Hello, Chair.
Hello, what could be wrong?
It is static. I don't know whether the technical team can help me to. Okay, fine. It's moving now.
Oh, good.
Okay, yeah. So the title for my presentation is Ubuntu, the Essence of Humanness in African Social, Culture, and Religious Anthropology. And this is informed by my reflection on the concept and notion of Ubuntu itself in all its diverse realities, as I'm going to attempt to explain here. But since we may not have all the time for me to go through the whole presentation, perhaps in the interest of time, I prepared a slide specifically on the presentation of the work. And it has about this number of topics. One is an overview, then the motivation, and Ubuntu as Africa's special, and then Ubuntu as African anthropology of humanness, and what is it to be human, or who is a human person, and then Ubuntu as the nexus between African anthropology and African spirituality or religion as we know it, and then Ubuntu and African Renaissance. And then towards the end, I try to chat a conclusion and a way forward. The presentation really finds its beginning in one of the treasured slogans where in South Africa among the Nguni people, where the active role of Ubuntu as we know it today is cherished very much. And it emerges out of that slogan, the saying, the maxim, Umuntu, Ngumuntu, Ngabantu, which is literally translated as a person is a person through other persons or through others. And in a sense, this one captures the totality of Ubuntu anthropology, its philosophy, sociology, the ethics and morality. And this was furthered very much by the protagonist of African religion and philosophy, John Mbiti, with his famous slogan that I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. And then his other slogan that it takes a village to raise a child, a slogan that was picked up by one of the famous people in Africa, Nana Rawlings, the wife of the former Ghanaian president, who wrote her autobiography on the same. And the underlying fact here is that in its very nature, Ubuntu anthropology and philosophy is actually communitarian. It is community-based and community-centered, and everything revolves around the community. A person only has meaning and significance out of, in the context of the community. So the human person who is Umuntu is a very complex and sophisticated being because it's the subject and object and center of focus of all the disciplines, learning and research. And talking about research specifically here, I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of the methodology, but my research is basically a literature review because Ubuntu itself is a theory that I'm trying to explore from a literary perspective and also from a practical perspective. So mainly that one summarizes everything that I would have to say about my methodology. Many times we lose sight of the fact that all the disciplines and all the learning we engage in, eventually we are trying to explore the complexity of the person that is the center at everything. My motivation or the problem for undertaking this study was is a question actually. Why should we reflect on humanness? Because it is something we can take for granted. We know every day we wake up and we are human beings and we encounter other human beings. So what about that? And my thesis is that humanity has lost its innate humanness, and we have now become slaves to technology, to ideology, to numbers. We talk about human beings in terms of figures, power, greed. Corruption is an everyday experience for many of us, especially in Africa. We are chasing money and wealth. We are so obsessed with status. We have become so untruthful and dishonest. And we have lost the sense of decency in what we do, and all that in the name of development. And all those things put together, they are hugely compromising our, which makes us actually different from other animals. And during the opening, our chairperson of council, Mrs. Lona Magara, talked about the contradictions of our time. And those contradictions are somehow covered in any of those things that I've mentioned above. We are experiencing a world that is torn apart by civil and social strife, the rampant conflicts, the wars, violence, and both. But all these are because they're just outcomes. They are symptoms of a humanity that is degenerated. We're experiencing increasing tendencies towards individualism, declining spirit of community and communion and solidarity that used to bond together our ancestors. We are experiencing disregard for the sanctity of life and the inherent dignity of the human person. Every day we hear of people dying or being killed in very clumsy ways, and it has become a common phenomenon, which is very sad. We are experiencing an erosion of the intrinsic human values of African Ubuntu, which is love and care for one another, justice and fairness, truth and honesty, respect for all, hard work, integrity, and decency. Hard work especially, we are seeing a generation where people want to get rich overnight. No more integrity because, as I said, lying has become part of our everyday life. We're experiencing a mad rush for material prosperity and social status and recognition at the expense of moral values. We have lost the conscience in a sense. We're experiencing a crave for comfort and easy success and life free of any form of pain. So Ubuntu is our giftedness, is the treasure, the Africa's treasure and gift to the world. This is comforting to all of us because we are saying that after 500 years of slavery and colonialism and globalization, not all is lost. And post-colonial Africa's need to reassert the African Ubuntu values and principles to reclaim the dignity of its people is one of the arguments that Dolamo is putting across, that we need to rediscover what makes us African. Africans are better human beings only by becoming members of their respective communities. As I said earlier, you can't really live the true African spirit of Ubuntu in isolation of other people. Okay. And then more importantly than anything, especially from the disciplines of sociology and social work, Ubuntu provides an alternative theory and philosophy to life. And we are able to challenge or to interrogate some of the positions that we have inherited from the West over many years. Ubuntu philosophy is one of the supreme contributions of the peoples of Africa
Bernard,
to the world.
you have 5 minutes, Bernard.
Okay, let me try to be faster. So what is Ubuntu? Ubuntu is humanness itself, and it distinguishes us from other animals. It is what makes us human. So when we lose it, we actually stop being human. And this comes from the linguistic or conceptual origin of the concept itself, Ubuntu, because its root, the Ntu, or the Zo in the Southern African languages, it really translates for a person. The root talks about the person himself as a human being, and that constitutes the essence of humanness itself. And here I want to quote directly from these two authors. Ubuntu is a term which derives from Muntu, meaning a person, a human being. It defines a positive quality supposedly possessed by a person. Okay, so it is the innate person. Ubuntu is not merely positive human qualities, but the very human essence itself, which lures and enables human beings to become Ubuntu or humanized beings. So it is not even just about what we do, it's about what we are within innately. And you have many more of those definitions, but I just want to emphasize that the essence of Ubuntu is the rule that makes us be. But the question is, what are those values and principles that we can look at so that we can understand or judge someone to be a Muntu or not a Muntu? Those are quite many. The list is inexhaustible. But these, in a nutshell, include sympathy, compassion, benevolence, solidarity, hospitality, generosity, affirming, availability, kindness, caring, harmony, interdependence, obedience, collectivity, and consensus. But someone has summarized this in just two that is fairness and justice. That is Mavira. They summarized them as fairness and justice. When you're fair and just to everyone, then really you are UMUNTU, because you'll have lived all the other principles and values that we're talking about. And another one has summarized them as integrity and dignity. If you live in a dignified manner, then you'll be truly a person. And then another scholar has associated the values of Ubuntu with the 7 virtues that were originally Egyptian culture, which is truth, justice, prosperity, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. And for my own contribution, Ubuntu simply means Ubuntu bulamu, or okubeera neza. And it means all those things: courteousness, decency, integrity, dignity, civility, and living wholesomely. Now, there is something very important that is necessary to safeguard the principles that make us a Bantu, and those are shame and guilt. Shame and guilt help us always to understand our shortcomings, our failures, our inadequacies, and maybe to act accordingly. It is the voice that tells us that this is wrong and this is right. And in our generation, we are seeing that we have lost so much of that because of too much relativism, and everything seems to things that talk to natural law, the natural law that is within us, which are embedded in those other principles, that is love, justice, fairness, and the others that are part and parcel of our nature as we are created. Also, African Ubuntu is the nexus that binds us with our spiritual beings, Africans. And we are saying that culture and religion are the 2 main pillars of Ubuntu that are inseparable. Culture and religion is, this author likens it to the story of the chicken and the egg, or the egg and the chicken, whichever came first, but it simply means that they can't be separated. African spirituality is anthropocentric. Again, it comes back to the person and to the community, and everything that is done revolves around the person and the community, and the person and the community eventually are connected to eternity through a cosmic process that involves that is living.
If you could please summarize.
Then it also emphasizes the immanence. Okay, thank you. Let me go to the conclusion.
Okay.
The renaissance, the possible renaissance of Ubuntu. I think the world is looking to a possibility that the undying spirit of Ubuntu can be regained among African people, so that we can be African again. And prominent scholars and the high-ranking personalities have talked about that. And especially this has worked in a very successful way in South Africa, especially through their democratization process. I would like to conclude by giving a small highlight about my way forward. What does Ubuntu mean in existential terms, the ordinary person in his or her day-to-day life context? This is something I think we need to continue reflecting on as we leave this conference. And I think for me, it would be a very viable area to continue exploring as empirical study for the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Bernard, for that exploratory study about Ubuntu, humanness and humanity. Thank you. I think we do have Okay, no questions yet. Colleagues, if you have a comment or a question for Bernard's presentation, this is the time to bring it up, please. Any questions, any comments? If you can't speak, please post them in the Q&A panel or in the chat, whichever is easier for you.
Chair, I'm seeing Monica's hand up.
Sure, unfortunately. Oh yeah, it is up here. Okay, did you say that is Monica? Okay, Monica, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, his presentation has been good and rich, but as a cultural ecologist, I know that humans are part of the wider ecosystem and they use culture to preserve nature and other biological resources. So I don't know why his presentation is really alienating humans from animals, and yet when you dig deep into understanding the way humans relate to the environment, you realize that this divide is not as wide as he has probably made it look. So I don't know, can he reharmonize that difference? Because I mean, humans talk to plants, humans relate with animals in ways unimagined. Yeah, something of the sort. I was just not comfortable with him really alienating humans from nature.
Thank you, Monica. Bernard, in addition to that, you also have a question in the Q&A panel from Cornelius. He says, Uganda and Ubuntu, do you see a correlation? So, yes, if you could respond to the two questions, Bernard.
Thank you very much, Chair, and for the participants for those engaging questions. First, starting with the Monica. Yeah, that's a very good comment or observation. And in fact, actually, it is, I think, the contrary of what I was trying to say, because unfortunately, I think the time couldn't allow to elaborate everything. But I have a section that talks about the nexus between Ubuntu anthropology and spirituality. Actually, Ubuntu as the nexus between African anthropology and African spirituality. And that point really comes out there prominently. One of the things, in fact, I'm saying is that you can't divide the space. As we see today, religions where you have the sacred space, you have Africa, that. Actually, that is because that spirituality is integrated. Sacredness is everywhere, and it is in the plants. It is in the ecology, indeed, as you're putting it. And indeed, Africans recognized the dependence of human beings on the nature where they live, not just for survival, but also for medication, but also for their bonds, the cultural bonds. For example, among the Ganda, the clan system is basically about that. It is about conservation of nature. They believed that the ancestral inhabited some areas, some places. And in fact, that was a way that they were able to conserve a lot of things out of their spirituality. And that spirituality came to connect them directly because also the persons according to their names and according to the way they were associated with the rest of the nature, somehow was continuous. The spirits of the dead, for example, or the ancestors, were believed to hover around within their vicinity or their immediate environment. And all that is part of the ecosystem. But I think the time really can't allow to delve very much deeply into that. But I have a whole slide on that I had summarized for that purpose.
Okay.
And then
Thank
for
you,
the
Bernard.
second question, the chair can.
Bernard,
is that enough?
Afraid
the time is out. Okay.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
Okay, Chair.
Thank you. I want to encourage you, please, if you could look into the Q&A panel. I hope you are able to access it. There are some questions there. Yeah, from Cornelius and also from Dr. Sechito. I wanted also to encourage you, perhaps, if you want to expand your study, to also include the issue of Ubuntu and language, given the fact that you are looking at the African context. If you consider issues of multilingualism and how these relate to the Ubuntu concept, perhaps that would also give you another angle of how you can look at that concept.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we wish you well as you progress with your exploration of this interesting concept. Thank you. So we now have to move on to the third presentation. May I know whether we have Samuel on the call? Samuel? Do we have Samuel Nyasha? If we are not on call, then we can move on to Prisca Tanui. Do we
Chair,
have
Samuel is not around, and we are not seeing also Prisca.
Yeah. How about Rabiu, Yusufu, and the rest?
They're around.
Okay. So I see Ishaka. Okay. So shall we now?
I think we're around.
Ishaka?
Yes.
Unfortunately. Hello? Unfortunately, we can't get you through quite clearly.
Yes, I'm with you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Would you like to start your presentation?
No, I'm with you.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we now can.
Hello, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Ishaka, unfortunately, you are on and off. I don't know. I hope you will find a stable point to speak.
Ishaka, we cannot hear you.
He has dropped off. He's muted, but we can't hear him through.
Mr. Chairman, sir.
Okay, so we
I'm the co-presenter with Ishaka. Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you want to take it up from there?
Yes, sir. Before he comes back, because the slides, he has the slide. And I'm also having network problem here, but I can still go ahead with the presentation if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Our host, Michael, do you have their slides with you? If you can share, and then Yusuf can speak to them.
I don't think I have the slides.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I go ahead before he comes back on board?
Please go. Yeah, please do.
Go ahead and start.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Yes, continue.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, the title of our presentation is Nigeria's Cultural Heritage, the need for review of the cultural policy. Cultural policy is a working document of the Federal Republic of Nigeria designed for the benefit of Nigerian people. And it is divided into three broad parts: the cultural policy and method of implementation, and then you have the focus of implementation, which is covering areas such as education, arts, tourism, mass media, and the general focus. And then you have the administration and finance of the culture, the cultural policy. So,
let me continue.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the focus of our presentation, as put forward by my colleague, my name is Isa Ishaq, is to identify areas where the cultural policy is either vague or do not exist at all. And as a result of those cultural
Isha,
elements.
Me, would you like to share your slides, please?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, please.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, please. Share. Please, I'm coming. I just want to share my screen, please. Please, the technical man, I don't know how to share this. Or is it because my video is off or what?
No, we are just seeing your desktop, but we are not seeing the presentation.
Okay.
Open the presentation first, and then you will share that screen.
Okay, I should go to the presentation first?
Yes.
Okay.
Open your presentation now.
Okay. Please. Please, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the thing is just taking some time. I don't know why.
Yeah, we are waiting.
Please, can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can, but if you could, now you can share that in the presenter view.
How do I do that, Mr. Chairman? Can you see it now?
Yes, we can. Okay, if you cannot, then you go ahead and speak to the slides as they go on.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Please, I'm sorry for the technical page. Okay, let me start with the introduction, Mr. Chairman. Nigeria is a diverse country with almost 280 different ethnic groups and culture. And each of the ethnic group have their own unique cultural activities and object that defines who they are. And these cultural unique cultural activities and objects appears prominently in all our activities as a people since time immemorial. For example, in the type of dress we use, in the type of clothes, in the type of food we eat, and even the nature of the buildings or our own settlement. You can see our culture prominently there. And then I just asked this question, what the cultural policy is all about, because for us to ask for a review of the cultural policy, we need to have an understanding of what the cultural policy is. So cultural policy is a document that contains the country's direction. Every government will have a direction towards health, toward the economy, and then health. So in this aspect, government will come out with a total direction and policies, programs on the cultural aspect of the country. So in that's what the cultural policy is all about. The Ministry of Culture and Tourism, headed by a minister, will sit down and bring out policy that will project and promote and preserve the cultural activities of the country, which are both movable and immovable, and then in the form of tangible and intangible. And then I asked the cultural policy of Nigeria, which was put forward in the 1972 and then only came into effect in the 1989, has not been looked at since that time. And then the cultural policy of 1972 has not envisaged the current realities of what is happening now in the country. The objective of the policy is, as it is in your screen, motivate people to disseminate and propagate ideas that promotes national pride, solidarity, and the consciousness, develop a national culture from the diverse Nigerian culture, promote education that stimulate creativity, very brilliant ideas. But, and then they come up with ways through which these objectives can be achieved, through deliberate attempts of getting books that speaks about who we are as a people, equipping our libraries and archives with information and narratives that define the people we are. And then in terms of our films and visual arts, those things should speak the person, the people we are. You can see that in the Ipe, Benin girls, and wherever you see them, you see that this is Nigeria. And then my point of interest in this, out of these 22 ways through which these objectives can be achieved, is the museum, monument, parks, and the site, Mr. Chairman. Museum is a place where cultural materials are collected from diverse cultural groups within Nigeria and displayed or exhibited. And these objects form part of our indigenous knowledge system. And then we don't even have a system of collecting them, like a policy of where we collect those things, how they were exhibited, what narratives or information were those things contained. For example, the display of our ancestors, what we have in the museum is a display of our ancestors' ingenuity in the following areas, like in the pottery making, iron smelting, and textile making, and other objects that contain our value systems. Mr. Chairman, you will believe with me that this object evoke a lot of memories of resilience, Africa resilience against external invaders. They speak a lot about our resistance, despite the fact that of our, let me say, I don't want to say low technology in terms of warfare, but we were able to conquer our own land and environment, and then get some innovation through which we interact with our surroundings in a way that we don't have to go outside and look for things the way we are doing today. And then the display also tells a lot about our own interaction with our neighbors. But all these beautiful histories were a place with gallery exhibiting more of our differences than our communality, as somebody talk about Ubuntu. Go to our museum and see objects. They speak more of our backwardness. They speak more of our differences rather than unity. And this is because we don't have a deliberate a policy that speaks or that is targeted at speaking internally about the people we are. And then, Mr. Chairman, sir, when you look at these museum visitors, the moment you go there, it's a place of enjoyment, it's a place of research and education. But people go in there and come out with also kind of bad experience, hatred of ourselves and our neighbors, because what you see in the display is like somebody killed your grandparent. There was a warfare between this community and this community, and now you are together. So it's like evoking those bad memories about ourselves. Let's go to the monument, Mr. Chairman. The monument I'm talking about is the 19th century monument that we see as our own monument. Are we really talking about the monument of the 19th century, which are places of the European settlement or places of their activities? When you come to Nigeria, all the listed monuments have a kind of relationship with the European activities. What is happening with our own buildings, with our own sites that are places of memories, like the palaces of our great-grand chiefs and our leaders? Nobody is listing them as a place of importance. They're prosing our history in time and space as if Nigerian history started in the 1900. So that is the thing, Mr. Chairman. When we go, why do we need this review, Mr. Chairman? That's the question I asked. The focus of this research is to have a clear policy direction in the museum collection management. We have to put in place when you go out to collect, who is collecting the object? What are you collecting? What history are you going to tell about the object? Who is telling the story about the object? Is it the community or the person coming to pick the object? A lot of things were misrepresented because people just come and collect objects and they write whatever they want without even the local people knowing about what is reported about them. The cultural policy we have in place does not clearly have specified or there is no a clear policy statement in respect of archaeological heritage sites. Mr. Chairman, sir, I think we have many archaeological sites in Nigeria, but the ones that are listed as heritage sites are less than 30 or 40. Mr. Chairman, what is what is going to happen to the rest? Maybe that is the reason why you see a lot of archaeological objects of Nigerian origin in foreign museums, because there is no policy that is set in place to protect and preserve those archaeological sites. So people come to plunder archaeological materials and then sell them through this illicit trade market. And they found their way in Europe and in their museums. The policy also lacks policy direction on historical buildings. We have to begin to systematically identify those buildings that belong to us, not the buildings that were said to belong to us by the white people or the people who came to colonize us. The policy also lacks policy direction on the preservation of heritage assets. What do we have in the museum? We have a lot of heritage assets, all these beautiful terracotta, pottery, but what about their own preservation? Nobody is talking about them. They were just collected and dumped in the museum without anything. They are deteriorating daily. If those things were left with the community, I believe the community would have used them. Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. I will soon round up. And the policy also lacks clear policy statement on the place of community in the ownership of heritage site. Mr. Chairman, according to the Nigerian law, when a site is identified, the time will be that place will be taken over by the government in terms of management and the ownership. What about the people? We know how people connect with the space, and then those things were taken away from them. And the government is not ready to even listen to the plight of the people. So people's the policy should take into account that there is no heritage without the people themselves, because those things reflect what the people do. So we need to capture those things into the policy. There is no also policy statement on the need of archaeological site museum. Those archaeological sites that are endangered, we need to make them open air museum where people will go and see the layout of archaeological activities in connection with one another in situ on the field, not in the museum. They are connected with one another. It's like a system within the site. You have the settlement, you have the industrial site within the site where they go out to work and then come back to their home. It's only when you have that picture, you will begin to understand how man in the past interacted with his environment. And then, Mr. Chairman, lastly, we also need to have like a clear policy statement on the need of Archaeological Heritage Commission. I think the reason why we are having all this problem is because all this heritage were lumped into one system, like a Ministry of Culture. No, when you break them into, like there is a Ministry of Archaeological Commission, or there is a commission handling archaeological sites and objects and then dealing with the museum. You will have experts there who knows how to design projects, who knows how to think about or the best way of preserving our culture. Mr. Chairman, I would like to share with you some disturbing pictures because of this. And if these things were not reviewed, or if we don't have a review of our cultural policy, these things will continue to happen. For example, this is an archaeological site storage. This is a site museum storage, housing archaeological collection. The archaeological collection are on the ground. Some of them are filed on top of one another. Nobody cares about the space, but we every day go to the site, collect objects, and dump them there. No clear policy collection management to deal with this issue. And this is also an archaeological site. It's not listed. These are stone monoliths. This is a layout of house foundation in another archaeological site. Nobody knows about that. Nobody is documenting this to give to the community, to the commission, or to whoever is in charge from the government side. So we need a clear policy that will take into account of what is happening here. This is a city wall. It's a 15th century city wall, Zaria city wall. People are taking sands, molding block from it because the place is not listed as one of the most important heritage sites. But places of 19th century have been listed as heritage sites, Mr. Chairman. So this is the reason why we want to look into this and then ask for a review. And I think your own contribution into this paper will enrich our submission in the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Shah, for that
Mr. Chairman.
presentation. Hello?
Mr. Chairman.
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as a co-presenter, I just want to add one more point.
Okay, in about 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. The failure of the policy also on how to relate with the outside world. Nigeria as a country is very diverse, and there are many people outside Nigeria who have established themselves in West African region and in other continents as a result of slavery and slave trade. So the policy itself did not also look at Nigerians in diaspora, contributions of Nigerians in diaspora, and how we can enrich our cultural policy in relation to that. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, the government negligence of including culture as part of our own development plan. The cultural policy has not satisfied the need of the Nigerian people as a nation and as a people. It is therefore suggested that the policy be reviewed and updated to accommodate the flaws highlighted by my co-speaker, particularly now that we are having new development in terms of the ICT and social media. When you look at the policy, you will see it's talking about mass media. The policy is not talking about using the digital world to be able to export our cultural achievements and development to other parts of the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues, we have about less than a minute or two to contribute to Shaha's presentation. So do we have any questions or comments to them? This is the time to ask or comment on this presentation. Okay, it seems we don't have any, but Shaha, if I may ask, you in the pictures
There are
that
some comments in the chat session.
Is that so? Okay. In the chat, I only see a thank you, maybe in the QA and let's see. Yes, Cornelius.
A question, Chair.
Okay, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. That presentation is really very good. And I want to be very brief in the interest of time. Can the presenter enlighten us? Really, is possible for us who are living in this time to give a real, accurate, unbiased interpretation of these heritage relics and all that goes about them, because they lived at a different time and now they're interpreted by a different time or in a different time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, can I answer him?
Please, please.
Yeah, yes, I think what we need to do, we capture it in why we want this policy to be reviewed, because communities were not actually engaged in the interpretation of their cultural object or whose object were under study. Life is continuous. If you come to an environment, except where there is clear evidence that there is no link between this culture and the subsequent culture can be. But those people have in them element of the past culture, which continuously revolve around their life. And I think we can learn a lot of things from them. Even though life cannot be static, it's dynamic, it keeps changing. So we need to also change as time change. But actually we can get some element of this interpretation from the decent people who are connected to the culture, whose the culture understood. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you, Shahar. There is another question from Dr. Gulere in the Q&A panel. Are you able to see it, Shahar?
I can't see. Okay, let me check, Mr. Chairman.
Q&A.
Toward implementation of Nigerian cultural policy.
Yes.
Somewhat, Nigeria is among one of the African countries that took a cue from Ghana to formulate its national cultural policy at the insistence of that is what we are talking about, because most of the things, if you look at it, when you compare, the similarities is there. It's just like copy and paste, changing the name of the countries. So this cultural policy was influenced by the foreigners or the foreign countries or the foreign powers. They don't want us to go back into this, our tangible heritage that speak more of ourselves. They want us to talk about more of dance, more of food, more of other things that does not really define the people we are. Actually, they don't want us to go into that. So we need to look into it and then put some things that we think can explain the people we are, not what other people think we are. We need an alternative source of telling our own history. And that can only be achieved when we look into this cultural policy that has been in existence since 1972, Mr. Chairman. I think even if you have a wife from 1972 to now, something will tell you to start looking for a new one.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but since we do have, I think, contacts and emails of colleagues, we can continue this conversation even offline. So
thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for attending and for the presentations, and I hope we continue with our explorations. So our host, Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Chairman, for being among these enlightened people. I'm a Nigerian, but studying in Ghana. My co-presenter is currently in Nigeria. And I have learned a lot of things from the Eastern Africa. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay.
We are really grateful.
Yeah. Michael, over to you. Over to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.
Bye.